6 years ago, experts began painstakingly dismantling a historic wee building on Leith Walk in Edinburgh. They were dismantling rather than demolishing because the very neglected building, the 18th century Botanic Cottage, will eventually be completely reassembled in the city's Royal Botanic Garden. Now that process began this week. The Regius Keeper at the Botanic, Simon Milne, told me a wee bit about the history of this fascinating building.
It's of huge significance. In the Scottish Enlightenment, it was a building which Professor Hope used for some of the early botanical science, very early botanical science. So it really was the sort of heart of botany in the country, so to speak. In addition to that, of course, Professor Hope was into medicine, and so he did a lot of his teaching of medicine as well as botanical studies there. So in terms of the heritage of Scotland, of botany and medicine, a very, very important building.
250 years on, why is this a good location for it, bang smack in the middle of the Royal Botanic Garden?
Well, where the Botanic Cottage was originally was where the Royal Botanic Garden was, and so it makes sense that now that site is now built over, that the cottage has been moved and is going to be resurrected here, and not just as a tribute to the past, but also to the future. And it's going to be used as a community space, as a place for education, for horticulture, for sustainability, health and well-being for young people. So it's going to come alive again and be used again for the same reason that actually it was built in the first place.
Right, folks, it's an exciting day. Today is the day that we start the building of the Botanic Cottage. We're cutting the turf. And to mark it, we're going to count it down. And we're going to count down from 3. And on the count of 3, I want you all to cheer. So 1, 2, 3.
I'm Eileen Dickey. I'm chair of the Friends of Hopetoun Crescent Garden, and Hopetoun Crescent Garden was the site of the Botanic Garden before it moved down here to Inverleith.
It was a very, very unprepossessing building. How did you manage to spot its historical significance?
Well, it had always been on various people's minds for several years before that. I would try to get it listed by Historic Scotland. They said, nah, useless little building, no importance. Anyway, the land was sold, the contractors were in, and it was going to be demolished. And that sort of galvanised people. And we said, right, let's try and set up a working party, which was set up, and we decided we'll go for a grant to do research on the cottage before it goes. With a lot of help from people, we got a large grant, nearly 50,000 from the Heritage Lottery Fund, and it just grew and grew, and people were very scathing at the beginning. What are you doing? There's nothing in this cottage. And then the idea grew, maybe we can dismantle it, not demolish it, and the contractors were very helpful, and everybody was very helpful.
I'm Sutherland Forsyth, and I'm the Community Engagement Coordinator for the Botanic Cottage. And we're incredibly excited about this project. It's going to help us to transform the scale of the education and community work that we already do here at the garden. We're going to be able to work with far more groups and of all different ages and backgrounds, far more than we ever have been able to before, because we'll have fantastic new facilities with this cottage, including a kitchen, potting sheds, various different classrooms. It's going to be a fantastic resource to help people discover the world of plants and to learn more about how they can help us have a healthier life.
The original cottage, effectively, it's almost a symbol of the Scottish Enlightenment. And then its tragic decline. You know, half of it goes missing because they build the road so far up. They bung a whole series of flats on one end. They cut off one gable end. The fact that this is being restored, I think, is wonderful. There's a real sort of almost a karmic balance to it.
Absolutely, and it's quite an amazing story that it's had, and to end up back here at the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, which is its spiritual home in many ways, is such a nice end to the story. And what's particularly nice is that when we complete the building, it'll be exactly 250 years after it was first completed. It was completed in 1765. We'll complete it in 2015. And it will simultaneously be the oldest and newest building in the Royal Botanic Garden, Edinburgh, which is quite a unique position for it to have.
Hang on a minute. You're gonna rebuild that in just over a year?
That's the plan, and we're already planning.
Wild optimism springs to mind.
Oh dear, no, we've got a very good plan for how we're going to go about getting it built. And when they originally built it, it didn't take them that long to build. Probably take us a wee bit longer, but the plan is that in 2015, the second half of the year, we'll have the cottage ready and we'll be able to start taking groups in and helping them to be able to use it and have this great new resource.
Architecturally, I can't wait to see it because it may use it Palladian style. You know, Palladian's usually done on the scale of things like Duff House up in the northeast coast, or Hopetoun House. You know, just at this side of the Forth. This is almost as if someone's done, you know, a grand scale, but on a domestic dwelling.
Exactly, but you know, it makes perfect sense when you realise that the architect behind it was John Adam of the Adam Brothers. And so this was an important building in its day because it was for the head gardener of the garden. And it was being used by key figures of the Scottish Enlightenment coming to use it. So it was designed by John Adam, and then we believe it was later amended by James Craig, who was the man responsible for the original plan for Edinburgh's new town. So two of the most important architects in Scottish history worked on this little cottage, which is why it's such a fine-looking building.
When they rebuild it, you know, they've broken the ground today, they've lifted the towers, etc. When they rebuild it here, what are your ambitions for the restored building? What do you want it to do?
Basically, I think it's what they've planned for it, which was based on what it was, that it's going to be a place of learning, a place of training, somewhere where young people can come and get the feel of plants and the garden and all the rest of it, and just be a nice, warm place to be in. Warm in the, not in the heating sense, but what's the other sense? But you know what I mean.
Welcoming.
Welcoming, yes, And of course there have to be changes because of disabled access and things, so it's not going to be exactly as it was, but it's going to be pretty near it.
Eileen Dickey, chair of the Friends of Hopetoun Crescent Garden there. And we also heard from Simon Mill and Sutherland Forsyth.